What agents should know about investors? Hello, I'm Dan Rochon. Today I am joined with Todd Sachs, and he and I are going to have a conversation about what agents should know about investors. So he's been around for a while. He's been in the construction real estate industry since 1989, and he's done developing, designing, building, and he's also the founder and broker of Sachs Realty. So welcome, Todd. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you. And since it's a Monday, I know that on Tuesday you do a Tuesday night live podcast as well. I want to make sure that I mention that as well.
I appreciate that. It's not always live. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. You just have to. It's a surprise. You just have to log on and see.
But they always pretend like they're live, though. Right?
We pretend, man. We'll interview somebody on a Monday at 1:00 and say, "Hey, it's Tuesday night."
All right.
So that it's 5:00 somewhere. It's Tuesday night sometime.
Got it.
Right.
So Todd, tell us a little bit about yourself. So you've been around for a while. So what got you into real estate? And we'll get to what agents should know about investors here in just a few minutes. But I want to learn a little bit about you. So what got you into real estate?
Well, before we do that, I want to say thanks for the book.
You're welcome.
It's an awesome book, man. I just started it. So thanks for hooking us up there with that. Dan, I appreciate being on the show. I'm asked all the time, what got me started in the real estate business. And it certainly wasn't being an agent. In fact, I didn't really have, I wasn't really feeling it with agents. I mean, I wasn't getting the warm and fuzzy feeling from agents as a builder and investor. I started in 1989 as a contractor, swinging a hammer.
Yeah. And,
was kind of felt like I was being held at bay all the time with my real estate agents. Several of them that, work for me. Of course, as an investor, they all brought me deals. They wanted to bring me deals, or a lot of times I just found my own property. It was no different back in the early 90s as it is right now. We just didn't have Zillow and some of those other platforms. But I was frustrated with real estate agents in general back in the day before I got my license. And in fact, that's what actually caused me to get my license. So started in 1989, swinging a hammer. I'd say by the early 90s, I had started building houses and doing flips, renovations, and didn't get my license until 2005.
Okay.
And I can remember when I was in real estate school, and they were going around to everybody saying, "And why do you want to be an agent?" And people were saying like, "Oh, I just want to serve people, and I want to help people buy a home and stuff like that." And they got to me, and I said, I want to be an agent so I can get rid of all the agents that that I've been working with. And everybody kind of looked at me like, "Oh, great, we got one of these guys in the class." And it's funny because I kind of fell in love with the business. I kind of fell in love with the brokerage side of things. And then in 2017, I started my own real estate brokerage, and we're a small brokerage here. We have 6 other licensees. I have a licensed executive assistant and then myself.
Okay.
That's kind of the short version of, but I started out investing in real estate first as a contractor working on other people's investments, and then started doing it for myself.
Got it. So if I'm on one side or the other, what should I know, as an agent, what should I know about investing?
Yeah. Well, I don't think that all agents, and, so if you're listening and you're an agent, I'm not telling you that you should help investors. That's not really something that I want to advise you to do. But I do think if you have an interest in it and you're willing to put the time in, I think it's if you're not serving investors, you're missing a big piece of revenue. And, because investors buy at all times. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that and some of the things just to kind of give you, an idea of some of the things I'd like to cover here, Dan. We want to talk about the types of real estate investing. And then we want to talk about the real estate investors, the different types of investors. And then really, if you're an agent and you're interested in doing more with investors, how to make yourself indispensable. And then I'm going to give you some ideas on where to find these investors. So if you're interested, hang on with us here. I think you'll be able to get some good pointers. But don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting everyone work with investors, but to kind of bring the two together, just so agents have an idea. Most investors, well, we all know who mostly pays the commission is the listing broker, right? So, you have the seller, the listing broker enters an agreement, gets the commission, and then that listing broker cooperates, shares a percentage of their commission with the buyer's agent. So we all know that. But you would be amazed at how many investors skip the agent on the buyer side, even though they're not paying for that agent, and they just go straight to the listing agent. So
happens a lot.
We want to talk about that because that's a big problem. So there's money that you're leaving on the table. If you're an agent, you don't have a listing, and you're not getting those investors to believe in you or to think that you're competent enough to actually serve them. But if you can do that, you can pick that up. So most of them are going straight to the listing agent saying, hey, I want to buy this house. I want to put an offer in, period, the end. The other thing, Dan, I really want to say is that because I've been in all the markets, being in the business for 32 years now, you've got ups and downs in the market. Right now, we're in a seller's market. So agents want to kick back and say, oh, there's no sense in going after investors because it's an overpriced market. It's not true. You need to be good and understand what a good deal is. And it's not necessarily going toe to toe with a home buyer, a retail home buyer. And we'll talk about that. But I want to give just a little bit of perspective on and context to the different types of markets. So right now we're in an up market, right? We're up market. So yesterday, probably the houses cost less than today. Today, they're going to cost less than tomorrow. You follow what I'm saying? We're in an up market. So you can't say, well, I can't buy now because I don't know when it's going to, go down. What you have to really realize is buying today a good deal because tomorrow it's going to go up. So you have to acknowledge when, what a good deal is. But think about when it's going the other way. If you think this is tough, when to buy when it's going up, let's think about when it goes down. So an investor, we're going down. An investor says, well, why should I buy today when I can wait tomorrow and it'll be less money, right? So if you're an agent and you're listening to this, get that out of your head. Take those obstacles, those excuses of why you can't help an investor in an up market. Yeah. It's more difficult, believe me, helping them in a down market because they're slow to pull the trigger. And
it's always either going up or down. It seldom is it plateaued.
That's right. That's right. Yep. But the main thing is a lot of agents don't know how to foster the investors and they give up. I mean, Dan, I was in Tennessee about a month ago, and Tennessee's hot. And one thing you have to know about real estate investors, many of them do so in states that they don't reside.
Sure.
So when you get in a commercial, actual true commercial, it's over 50% of the investors that are buying in your state probably don't live in your state. So I was in Tennessee.
It's just about the numbers. It's just about the numbers.
That's it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If they're true investors, it's all about the numbers. So I was in Tennessee, and I tried so hard to spend money when I was there. And, I had cash ready to go, ready to pull a trigger on a deal. And I had the worst time. I couldn't even find. Here I am like, hey guys, I have cash. I've heard the agents say, well, you can't get deals. Okay, what can I get? And I'll call you back. And they never did. And then I had one that was kind of really promising. I was hopeful, like, wow, I actually have an agent to talk to as an investor, because most of them think that investors are a waste of time.
Sure.
The wrong investors are a waste of time. And I finally thought I had somebody. And she actually called me and followed up with me like 2 weeks later and brought a contractor on the phone that was going to give me turnkey. We had laid down some ground rules, established a price, which was a lot, $500,000 purchase. And they were both going to get back to me within a week. Guess what?
I'm guessing that didn't happen.
They never did. So if you get, if you're listening, you're probably getting an idea like, wow, man, this sounds familiar. Maybe I had an investor that I never called back. You never know. That investor could buy 10, 12 houses a year.
Yeah. So that's different types of markets. So you mentioned different type of investors. So tell us more about that.
Yep. So first, let's talk about investing. Real estate investing, right? And a lot of agents, they got their license because they wanted to get into real estate investing. Right now it's trending hot. Millennials, I think 1.4 million licensees in the US. It was a big Wall Street Journal article that was just out. And I think at the time, I think it was the end of April. I think it was the end of April. Wall Street Journal, 1.4 million licensees in the country, finally surpassed the amount of available inventory. We had 1.2 million houses for sale. So if you do the math, but a lot of people get their license because they want to cut out that middleman, cut out the agent, which is a mistake. And, but anyway, so let's kind of today we'll talk about residential investing. So the types of residential investing that you can do. One is, we all know, is flipping, right? The classic flipping. You buy something that's distressed, fix it up as quick as you can, turn it for a profit. Then you have developing, right? You can buy a parcel. You can go through the engineering, split it up into buildable lots. That's a type of investing on the residential side. And then you have the buy and hold or landlording, which is another very popular type of investing. So probably the toughest right now would be flipping because the market is hot. And unless it's really distressed, your retail buyers are gobbling up that inventory. But it's not impossible. So, why don't we just kind of talk about that, Dan? We'll talk about, the investing side of things and what makes a good investment even in today's market. Flipping, there has to be some kind of additional upside to it. So a lot of times agents mislist properties. So what happens a lot of times is maybe it's a residential office, or maybe it can be subdivided, or maybe it's even commercial and it's on the residential MLS, right? So it's really important, if you're going to serve investors, that you know what you're doing. You know how to spot out these potential upsides to the properties that are listed so that you can market them right yourself. You're not the listing agent, but you now need to take that property, identify the value that's in it, where the money can be made, and then you have to market that and go out and get a buyer, which is why I love dealing with investors, because you can always drum up business.
Sure. You find the deal. You find the deal, and the buyer will come.
You find the deal, you can find the buyer.
Yep.
100%. Yep. So you have to look for some of those more difficult ones. I just saw a deal. I ended up losing it, but it was on a busy street. And I hung in there because it went under contract, and then the contract almost fell through. But it was a residential office. The agent listed it as, it was RO residential office.
Okay.
But it was also could be a multifamily dwelling, up to 3 units. It had the right lot size. And the agent had it straight out as a residential listing. And it started out at like 370 on a busy street. It ended up down to 275. I went in much lower than that. It ended up closing, I think, at 275. But anyway, it would just held on. I mean, it was on the market for 4 months in this market, a residential house. I wasn't going to tell the agent, hey, look, why didn't you market this to investors that could put 3 apartments in the place?
What do you think? Run us through that deal real quick, Todd. So I don't want to get too far off the track here, but that opportunity, what do you think it would have cost to redevelop? And then what do you think, at the end, the after repair would be worth?
Yep. So, let's kind of work all the way backwards. Okay. So, when I'm looking at rentals, and most of my investor clients, I'm teaching them, so they look for this too. We're looking for like that 1% rule, right? So if you can rent something for $3,000 a month, you can spend what? $300,000.
Yep.
Right. So what we're trying to do is we take things backwards. We'll look at what will the market rents be? What do you need to do the repairs, to bring it to that? And then what do you need to buy it for minus all your costs, right? Because there are fees that are involved. And that's another thing when you're dealing with investors. As an agent, you have to understand what those costs are. You might, them, of course you do, but you need to work the deal for the investor, right? So I was going in at 220.
Okay.
So basically I figured I was going to get 2 $1,400 a month apartments and $1,000 apartment. Okay. So we're 3,800, right? So as long as I can stay under 380 as a completed deal, it's a home run, right?
Sure.
So that's kind of, understanding. So what did I have to do? Well, I had to understand what I needed for a 3-unit dwelling, because one of the things, and if you're an agent, you have to understand the zoning in your market. So, and you have to understand the residential zoning, and then you also have to understand when you can up that zoning. And a lot of times you can up the zoning when it joins a higher zoning. So for instance, in this deal, we had DR 5.5, which is 5.5 residential dwelling per acre. Okay. So basically we were able to get 3 units based on the lot size, not from the current zoning that was RO, residential office, but because behind touching that property was DR 5.5 in Baltimore County, Maryland. You were able to use that higher density zoning for your zoning when your property touches that higher density zoning.
Okay.
So, you have to understand, the agent hadn't a clue. Okay. The agent had no idea, because this was literally a home run. It was me personally. I could have stepped up to the plate. It's kind of like one of those things kicking myself a little bit, not hard because I'm busy, man. I got a lot going on, but it was one of those deals that I said, she doesn't know what she has. I don't think they're going to sell it the way they are. So I rolled the dice. I lost. The deal was going to fall through. She called me up and said, hey, your offer's still good? I said, absolutely. I sent it over, sent the proof of funds. Literally the last day they had to close, man, they pulled it out. She sent me an email and said, I couldn't believe it. I had to check it on the MLS to make sure that it was actually closed, because I was like, ain't no way. I lost it, but I did. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of what that deal looked like. But, serving investors, guys, if you can get a couple good ones, and I get it, there are a lot of tire kickers out there. But if you can get a couple good investors.
How do you define a good investor? How do you, as an agent, how do you know who a good investor is and who do you want to stay away from?
And that is a really good question, because I don't want to there's a lot of people out there that are just, they talk to hear themselves listen, or they talk to listen to themselves. They hear themselves talk. And, I'm certainly not saying that to, say that newbies aren't serious and aren't potentially good investors. But the tire kickers, you have to vet out right off the start. So, Dan, I always say there's 3 types of investors.
Okay.
All right. The three types of investors are the ones that have the cash, but have zero time, right? And, they work a full-time job. Maybe they own their business. They're diversified or want to be more diversified in their portfolio. They have a couple, $500,000. And they said, look, I want turnkey investments. So, if you're an agent, you can find me a deal. You can assemble the team, or at least tell me who to use, put it together, toss me the keys at the end, put it on the market, sell it, and boom, give me a return on my investment. I'm happy, right? That's those types of investors. They're a little bit more work, but usually they have friends that have the same amount of money or more than they do. And if you can do that for one, they start talking about it. And next thing you know, you get their buddies, right? The second type of investor, I'll call them the HGTVers, right? They know enough to be dangerous. They want to get more into it. They still work a full-time job. They have the cash, or they have the available cash. They can get it. And they want to do things like sweep up, fill the dumpster, things like that. And learn as much as they can about doing it. Maybe be involved in the design work, go to Lowe's, Home Depot, pick out the fixtures, stuff like that. Then I call the category 3, which is just a flat out ballers. They do this every single day. They've got crews, their own crews. They'll flip 20, 25 houses a year, or as many as they can get their hands on. They have available cash. They're the ones that actually tend to be the less loyal, because they have a machine that's going, and they have to feed the machine. And let me tell you something, if you don't feed it for them, they have no loyalty to you or anybody else for that matter. They're just going to buy it from wholesalers, from other agents, you name it. You're going to have a hard time taming that beast. Yeah.
So those are the investors.
In general, I mean, when you're talking about local residential investing, they're going to check those boxes. They're either going to get into flipping, the buy and hold mostly, and then sometimes land development, like right now. I mean, if you can produce lots,
and then you got a lot of wannabe investors as well, or not even wannabe, but pretend to be investors. Because one of the things that I know, I see this for some reason or another, it happened to me as a new agent. I've seen it happen to a lot of new agents, where you have these, I'm putting in quotation marks, investors that will come and say, hey, I'm looking for something 60 cents on the dollar. And then once you start having the conversation with them, you say, okay, well, what assets do you have? None. I've got no cash. Okay. Well, what's your credit like? It sucks. Okay. So you have no money, no credit, and you want something 60 cents on a dollar. Yep. Yes, please. That's probably not an ideal investor to work with. I wouldn't even categorize them as an investor, right? But that's probably not an ideal person to take your time spending with. Would you agree with that, Todd?
100%. And I think that's one of the reasons why agents get so desperate for business that they'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is they will entertain those tire kickers, and, they'll go through these courses where, buy with no money down. They watch it happen on Instagram.
Sure.
And, it just doesn't happen. You have to have something. You can't not have money and not have credit. You have to have something. Some of the first questions that I ask is, how much cash do you have? That's like the very first. I get a lot of people that'll call me up and, growing up in Maryland, Baltimore, I'm a Baltimore guy, understanding your marketplace, me being an investor as well. I'll have people that'll reach out and they'll say, hey, I want to buy 100 houses.
Yeah.
I'm looking for 100 houses. You're like, yeah, you and everybody else, buddy. Like, yeah, okay. So, that's a ridiculous way to start a conversation, right? Why are you calling me? You want to buy 100 houses. Do you think I have a seller that has 100 houses to sell? What benefit does that do me? You think I'm going to convince 100 sellers in one neighborhood to sell to you? No. The other thing I hear all the time is, I want to buy an apartment building of 100 plus units. And then I'll say to them, where? Why are you calling me in Maryland? They don't exist, right? Yeah. So you have to know your market, and you have to understand what the people are asking, so that you can quickly, they're like very easy to vet out. But when somebody's calling me up and they're saying, hey, I want to get into real estate investing, The questions I'm asking is how much cash do you have? And this is a serious question. Oh,
Sure.
don't worry, I have plenty of cash. No, I do worry because my time is money. And if I'm talking to you, I need to know how much cash you have. I have to understand, does that mean 5,000 or does that mean 500,000? It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I can't help them either way. But when I'm asking questions, when they're asking questions and I'm asking you questions, it's because I can't answer the questions unless you give me what I need. Right. So I have to know, number one, do you have cash? Do you have access to cash? If the answer is no or limited, then I have to go to the credit and assets because I need to help you find cash if you don't have cash or access to cash.
Okay.
Right. So you have to have credit. If somebody's coming to me and they're saying, hey, look, can you help me? I'm a real estate investor and I do flips or I rent. And I say, hey, look, have you been doing this before? They go, yeah, I've been doing it for probably 10 years. I'll say, great, do me a favor, send me the last half a dozen houses that you bought. And I don't even care if they're in the state, wherever they are, send them to me. Here's my email address. Send them to me so I have a good idea of what it is that you do. At that point, you're either going to send me a half a dozen addresses or you're never going to call me again.
And if
Guess
they do,
what?
that's probably a good candidate.
That's right. And if
Or at
they
least a
don't
good
ever call
starting
me
point.
again,
Yeah.
then guess what? I'm not chasing them.
Yeah.
You know?
So so you mentioned, different types of investors, different types of investments, and also different types of agents. So tell me more about that.
So the agents, we can talk about that because we have a couple agents that specialize in helping investors. I mean, that's
Okay.
kind of, what we do to fill in, right?
Got it.
So, just to let you know, I mean, there's some things that we're looking for. So when you're self-employed, you're a real estate agent, you're trying to build a business, right? If you want to go after investors, you've got about half of it. The knowledge is already there. I mean,
Sure.
you have a real estate license. You understand marketability of a property. You understand the permanence of investment. You understand, how to do, comparative market analysis. I hope so anyway, if you're out there, helping buyers and sellers. So you have a huge part of this already down, right? So what you have to decide is, do you want to learn the rest? As a professional, do you want to learn the rest? Because you have to be, you have to be competent in helping the investor. Number one, you have to do the legwork for them. So if you have a live, real, capable investor, now you have to go to work, right? While you're out there doing your thing, you need to be keeping these guys and gals at the back of your mind. And, looking at properties, understanding what their parameters are, understanding what their capabilities are, and kind of taking inventory of what's out there in your day to day. But agents that go after investors, you've got to figure it out for them. You have to understand if they want flipping, right? If I get a flipper, I want somebody who's going to do 2 houses a year. That's kind of like the program that I like to start people on. I want to flip that money twice in a 12-month period, right? It's going to come out to 4 sales for me.
Sure.
I'm going to get 2 buy and 2 sell in a flipper, right? If we do our job and our homework right. So I'm targeted. What I'm doing, I got a guy that's got that kind of money. That's what I'm going after. I'm going after finding him something with the amount of money that he has in cash or available cash that he can complete the project. We can sell it and find another one just like it. So, you have to be out there scouring for inventory, but it goes much further than that because you have to be an expert in the market that you're attracting an investor to. So you're bringing the investor into your market. You're not going to their market. So if you have a guy that has money and he says, hey, look, this is what I do, this is what I look for, pick the market. Pick the market you know best. Know everything about the market. Know everything about the zoning. Know everything about the developing that's going on in that marketplace. When I was an agent or when I was really working more as an investor than I was, as a manager, I would go to every zoning hearing that happened in the counties that I served.
Okay.
I would plant myself. Now, COVID kind of, shut that down, but they're available by Zoom now, and
Sure.
anybody can register. You just have to register in advance. I think it's 48 hours in advance now. They have to register to be included in that, to get the Zoom link to hear the zoning. But the development in the neighborhoods starts a year, year and a half, 3 years, 5 years before the actual shovel goes in the ground. So where there's master plan communities are happening or being proposed. Understand what big commercial development is going on in your area. If somebody buys 47 acres or contracts to buy 47 acres and they talk about an undisclosed developer that's working on this 47-acre site, and they're going to take a new exit off of this road, this interstate or whatever, something's happening, right? Don't wait until the shovel goes in the ground before you start your digging and your research. So, you have to really epitomize what it is that you're doing as a real estate professional to attract these true investors.
Well, Todd, I appreciate your sharing your wisdom today. I know that you have a YouTube channel that you have a lot of other great content. And what's on that YouTube channel, and where can I find it?
So it's everything and anything real estate, really, is what we talk about. And Sachs Realty, you just go to YouTube and type in Sachs Realty, you'll find our channel. So we talk a little bit about everything. So a lot of investor stuff.
All right. Well, cool, Todd. I really appreciate your time today and sharing with us, how we can, as a real estate agent community, work with investors. And I'd love to have you on again because there's a lot. I mean, there's so much that we can really, dive into on this. And I appreciate your time today, and God bless you, Todd. Thank you.
Hey, man. Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay.